You're listening to Radio Flange Goblet, and before we head over to the After Movie Diner, we just have time for some headlines. Lent Winecup was arrested today and sentenced to much time for art installation featuring live mongoose and a papier-mâché likeness of Dr. Ruth. Croatia has today declared they are giving back all the glazed pistachios they had stolen from Slovenia. Croatia had been stockpiling the pistachios for the past 5 years and in fact had been using the shells to make festive hats with in the wintertime when there's fuck all to do and balalaikas are practically useless. And celebrations today as the Supreme Court announced that they are finally outlawing Stephen Dorff. The persecution and abuse of the public has gone on long enough, said Justice Kagan, and despite there being no constitutional basis for the ruling, all 9 judges agreed that Dorff, despite languishing in Nowheresville for the past 10 years, still very much posed a real threat and had to go. Dorff is being strapped to a giant sea turtle and being cast adrift off the coast of Oregon. A small ceremony for the president, some members of royalty, and Jerry Seinfeld, featuring a mariachi band and a poetry reading by Craig T. Nelson, will take place at sundown under some banners depicting large bouncy tits. Hello, and welcome to yet another episode of the After Movie Diner. And this week's episode, we have returning champion, resident co-host, and frequent journeyman on the road to despair. Today's offering, which I'm going to hand over to my colleague James Wallace, to explain just exactly what we sat for.
Well, normally this is where we'd run through the plot, right? But I think for the first time ever, I'm going to be able to get from the beginning of the plot to the end of the plot inside of a sentence.
In fact, it's going to be interesting because if you're incapable of doing this...
Okay, all right. One sentence. One sentence plot. Arnie plays unrealistic farmer whose daughter...
Already you've muddied the water. You don't go into Arnie's character at this point.
You're right.
The sentence is really
Farmer's daughter is zombie.
No. Father's daughter slowly dies.
Slowly becomes zombie.
Slowly becomes... You know the sequence in Dawn of the Dead?
I've got it. Wait,
I've
got it. Farmer's daughter slowly becomes a zombie and dies.
Yeah. That's it. That's the entire
I done it. It took me 3 attempts, but I done it.
That's the entire movie. No, but it literally is.
Literally is.
Literally is.
If you're thinking, I'm sure there's more to it, you would be wrong.
You would be absolutely wrong.
Yeah.
The best way to explain this movie is that it looks like a Taylor Swift Coca-Cola advert filmed by someone who wants to sleep with Sofia Coppola.
Yes, we were trying to figure out, because obviously it's a zombie movie, right? And after about 15 minutes we knew it was bad. I mean, we probably knew it was bad. I knew it was bad pretty quickly. It wasn't bad so much as just interminable. Yes, it was dull. It was really dull. But so we were trying to figure out, okay, what kind of a zombie movie is this? And Crossy suggested, what if Jim Jarmusch filmed a zombie film? And I thought, well, no, because then there would be more famous people in it. The scenes would be much longer, and much less would be happening.
Right.
So that didn't really fit.
And it might occasionally have a Tom Waits song in it.
Yes, yeah, right. Then Crossy, which would have improved it. Then Crossy also said it's like a Sofia Coppola zombie film, which I thought was pretty close. Because it was extremely empty.
Because Jim kept saying, this looks like outtakes or dream sequences from other movies.
The whole thing looked like flashbacks from other films.
Flashbacks, that's it.
You know, in the action films, they have a flashback to when they were running through a field,
right? And
the camera's like low down, and there's lots of sky, right, and the sun is like flitting out from behind their head. Yeah. That's the entire movie.
Which reminded me of the trailer, because I've never seen the movie. Because why would I? But the trailer of the
Virgin Suicide.
Kirsten Dunst starring Virgin Suicide. So the whole movie looks like the outtakes from the Virgin Suicide.
It looks like a grey Virgin Suicide is what it looks like.
That was pretty grey to begin with.
But even then, the Sofia Coppola thing didn't seem right because it was so so half-witted.
Right.
Like at least she is like, okay, it is awful, but they are at least full-witted awfulness.
Right.
Whereas so we ended up deciding on this is a zombie film made by somebody that wants to sleep with Sofia Coppola. That's what we wrote.
Whose main source of inspiration was a Taylor Swift.
But who'd only made up to that point Taylor Swift Coca-Cola records. Yeah. Because there's a lot of it that's like that. There's lots of it's just the way it looks. Everything's a bit slow motion.
The whole thing is filmed by a drunk midget.
Yes, it is all filmed by a drunk midget.
And
everything's really low down. He's really interested in grey sky.
It's low down.
Grey sky is not interesting. No. There's so many shots of like lots of grey skies.
Do you know what colour sky is interesting? Almost any other colour of sky.
Black skies, blue skies, cloudy skies, the whole all fine. Anything with anything going on.
You know when we were teenagers and you would occasionally, because you were feeling a bit wacky, buy like blue shades as opposed to regular black or brown shades.
Yes.
You would buy like blue shades or green shades or whatever.
Or red
and
shade.
You would put them out on like a sunny day.
Yeah.
And it has this weird effect where everything just becomes sort of monochrome almost.
Yeah,
it doesn't
I know what you mean.
Like it doesn't shield you from the sun because it's blue, right? But it just kind of makes everything this kind of flat, monotonous.
Yeah, that is what it looks like.
And then you took it off and went, oh yeah, there's vibrancy to the world, and then you put it back on. That's how it looks.
That's why it looks like. Yeah, you're
Only the person wearing the blue glasses was dying. slowly. And drunk.
But surely.
Right.
Do you know, because you know when you went to school, after the summer holidays, and you go back to school, and you'd look up on those like September, like those rainy September days, but it wasn't even raining, and it was just like a low grey sky, and it just that kind of like depression seeped into your soul, like that hopelessness.
Yeah,
it was like that.
Like that, yeah.
Only badly written.
Yeah.
At least your life is better written than this movie was.
Right.
Which was the whole movie was full of scenes that were just, what is even the point in this happening?
To be honest, the normally, right, the tradition of good zombie movies is that the zombies represent something.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
So they normally represent some aspect of humanity that the filmmaker is trying to like critique. And one of the main reasons I hate Zack Snyder's remake of Dawn of the Dead is that they don't represent anything. It's just the excuse for an action movie.
Right.
In this one, as far as I can figure it, the metaphor for what she's going through and what Arnie is then subsequently going through and what Jolie Richardson is going through is the idea of, and we find out that it's hereditary because her mum also died young, it's a metaphor.
It's not hereditary. I think it's coincidental that her mum died young.
But what I mean is what they're talking about is they're talking about illness, specifically a cancer or an AIDS or something like that in a family where the only recourse for the family is to watch that loved one slowly die, right? There really is nothing they can do other than to sort of eke out this existence, have the best moments they can, and then watch them die. The trouble is with that, right? So it's a bit like watching Julia Roberts' Dying Young, only filmed by someone who wanted to sleep with Sofia Coppola. But the difference being is that in movies where characters get cancer or characters get AIDS or characters whatever, there's normally, so that the whole audience isn't sitting there wanting to like put a shotgun in their mouth, there's normally moments where, because they're still upwardly mobile and they're still relatively healthy and they're not completely dead yet, there's moments of exuberance. So they like, what's the one thing they always like doing? They like going on roller coasters. There'll be a scene with the ill person on a roller coaster.
There'll be some levity, there'll be some laughs.
Right. And what's hilarious is Abigail Breslin, who plays Maggie in this movie, I'm almost pretty sure, not only is she in Zombieland, which I'm definite about, but I'm almost certain she's in the movie where she plays the sick kid dying of cancer to Cameron Diaz's sister, I think.
But here's the problem with that idea, right? The older zombie movies...
But the problem is it's dull.
No, but specifically, the problem is that...
I've got to pick my dinner. Have you picked what you're having?
I know what I'm going to have. Specifically, the red flame wrap. I'm doing my specialty thing. Specifically, the problem is that in those movies, the zombies represent something. Now, the reason that's interesting is zombies are dead human beings with a thirst for flesh and are extremely dangerous, kind of funny, but at the same time deeply scary. There's a lot of different emotions going on looking at a zombie when it's lurching towards you and it wants to eat you. Right. So using that as a representation of something is interesting.
Right.
Nobody, and I mean nobody, cares in those movies how they became zombies. George A. Romero could never be bothered with coming up with a decent explanation of how they became zombies. Well, in the background in a news report in Night of the Living Dead, there's something about an asteroid, and that's it. That's as much as you get from Romero, right?
Right.
Nobody cares how they became zombies, right? So therefore, the disease that turns people into zombies is not interesting. What's interesting is that they're zombies, not, oh, imagine the process they'd have to go through before they became a zombie. Wouldn't that be interesting? No, it wouldn't be interesting, because what you're doing is, zombies are inherently a bit funny, but also scary and ridiculous. And trying to say that the process of turning into a zombie is a bit like cancer is, well, no, it isn't, because...
But I think it's a bit like the problem we had with It Follows, which is... the metaphor was there, and it had to be slavishly adhered to.
Yeah, that's a good
even
point.
In the face of
extreme dullness.
Yeah, ludicrous dullness.
Yeah, you're right. And there was some... Okay, but that's not even my biggest problem with the film.
Because he was able to rationalise with her, and even when he was asleep at the end...
Oh, you ready, by the way?
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
Oh, you like this?
Can I get the red flame wrap, please?
Okay. Anything to drink?
Yeah, can I get a chamomile tea?
Mm-hmm.
Magic.
Think so. Yeah, can I get a black and white shake? Mm-hmm. And I'll have the Popeye salad, please.
You want chicken?
No, thank you.
Okay.
And can I get just a side of ranch with that? Like, not on the salad, but just a side of ranch.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Okay.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Cheers. So, okay, here's the thing, right? I have one big, huge, irredeemable problem with this movie, other than the fact that it was crap, like total crap from start to finish, and really boring crap as well. Alright, this is what I can't wrap my head around. When I heard initially, there's going to be an Arnie zombie film, I was really excited about that, because how could that not be good? Aging, grizzled Arnie versus zombies.
Right.
And not in a Walking Dead, hey, let's get a bunch of characters together who are going to bicker for hours and hours and hours, and then maybe every 6th episode they'll kill a zombie. Because, fuck the Walking Dead. Anyway, but good zombie films can be made, even if they are just like daft action films. That's fine. It doesn't need much. But Arnie versus zombies could be like an amazing movie, like a really good Arnie kicks zombie ass, post-apocalyptic. There's nothing about it that couldn't be good.
Do you know what this also had the problem that the first series of The Walking Dead did? I thought like at least half of the movie was going to be him road tripping to find his daughter.
Yeah. Oh yeah, me. Thank you very much.
Like trying to find his daughter, and he found his daughter within the first 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's true. To be honest, I was expecting
like I wanted him like wandering across the wasteland and
that would have been
like
fine. And it wouldn't have been expensive. But what I don't get is that would be a good movie. And okay, this is
also there was whole scenes where clearly they only had Arnie for like 3 days or whatever.
Yeah.
And there were whole scenes where inexplicably he just wasn't in them.
Yeah, that's true.
Like I don't know. I'll tell you the biggest flaw with the film. The biggest flaw with the film was simply that there were too few scenes. Like it's not inconceivable that the idea of a father having to watch his daughter dying of a disease or whatever, and making it zombies aware couldn't have been a little bit more entertaining or interesting rather, with a different treatment. Like, I think we're both agreed that the biggest flaw was the treatment of the way it was made, and the way it was scripted and everything else. Which, in other words, it wasn't scripted.
Yeah, other than the fact that the story and the idea
and the way
the
it was shot
and the direction were all fucking appalling.
But no, what I'm saying is there wasn't enough of. You never got the feeling that Arnie was trying to make the last few days of his daughter's life actually count. He kept saying to everyone who kept coming to try and like take her away, like, you do not touch my, like, get away, don't come near my daughter, I will kill you with my fist, like that was going on. But there was no bit where he, apart from when they sat around and vaguely talked about a truck, which was...
He took it to the garden.
Yeah, but there wasn't...
No, I know what you mean. There was no sense of...
shuffled into shot, squeezed out a single man tear, talked about a truck, and then shuffled off again. And then for 3 interminable...
Yeah, there were lots... Okay, the problem... What you're talking about is true. But the problem with that was, again, bad writing. Because there were 2 bits where they tried to have moments. One was the truck bit, and the other bit was the, we're eating disgusting food. And... neither of them worked. Like, they weren't funny, they weren't interesting, they weren't cool, they weren't like... They were just written by... I don't know this for sure, but I'm guessing it was a writer-director. And it's not. No, somebody who wasn't a director wrote that.
Yeah, a guy
and they should never be hired again.
3.
Okay, well, they should never be hired again.
Literally, his last name is 3.
Well, all I can think of...
the number 3.
All I can think of in his defence is that vast swathes of his script were thrown out or rewritten by...
No, they weren't. This was literally like taking a 10-minute sequence from The Walking Dead, which we both agree is a pretty dull series anyway.
Yeah. I'm sorry about what I said about The Walking Dead, because I understand that as a soap opera horror movie with zombies, that if you can get invested in that world and feel like kind of a part of it, I get why that's thrilling, and I get why
it's just not thrilling to us because
it's not. It doesn't float my boat because it's not the kind of things that I enjoy. But it wasn't fair of me to say that. Yes, it's not Day of the Dead.
No. The biggest problem with The Walking Dead is not what's happening. It's the characters. All the good characters are written the same way, and all the bad characters are written the same way. And someone has actually told me recently, they're like, but with the new series there's more ambiguity and blah blah. And I was like, yeah, but they lost me 2 series ago. So like, what am I meant to do? Like, watch 2 really bad series just on the hope that by the time they get to the 5th series or whatever they're on now, there's some slight ambiguity and someone's slightly more kick-ass than they were 3 seasons ago. I don't.
Yeah, it's fine. It's definitely not our thing.
But what I'm saying is a 10-minute sequence in The Walking Dead where someone had to deal with the death of their daughter, right, which would be like a 5-10 minute sequence. Maybe it's even an episode arc, right?
Right.
But that would be like this, stretched over, many... Thank you so much. Stretched over 90 minutes and 2 hours, whatever this was. I mean, it felt like the rest of my life.
It was so... The thing was...
Like, if I came out of the cinema...
You've got to understand, right? It got to a point, after about 50... Okay, I knew it was going to be bad the moment that the doctor went, well, even though we have very strict quarantine in place, I'm going to let you take your daughter home as a favour to a character that we don't know. But his name is Vern. Remember that? Vern. All right? First of all, anyway, I knew it was going to be bad from that. Well, that thing, that thing that goes to your back of your mind going, uh-oh. Which is the opposite thing where you go, wow, this could be really cool, like the John Cusack thing, the opposite thing.
Right.
But what started to happen with me and Crossy was every single scene that started, literally, the scene would start and we'd both go, ugh.
Yeah.
Like, every single scene was, okay, so this is the scene where they reminisce about whatever. Or this is the scene where she goes to the lake with her friends. And we knew everything that was going to happen in every single scene.
There was a scene in which Arnie walked around an empty house.
Right. Lovely. Oh, yeah. Great. Thank you very much. Oh my God, that was the worst. Wow, that was really great.
Okay.
Thank you. So there was a scene where Arnie walked around an empty house, right? That's all he did.
Yeah, that's all he did.
Nothing in the house.
The dishes haven't been done.
Yeah, there were bees on the windows. Not the bees. So.
Oh no, it smells bad in the room.
He walks around the empty house. There's literally nothing happens. There is no reason for him to be there. It's not.
He doesn't learn anything.
He learns nothing, and it doesn't further the plot at all. For some reason, there's slightly heightened, eerie music for maybe a second. That's it.
The music was starting to drive me bananas.
Every scene started, and either a violin or a piano would go,
no,
and then you would just want to kill yourself.
They go, oh, it's morning. Yes, it is the morning. What would you like for breakfast? I'd like some eggs. And then the piano would go, They go, do you remember when you used to have eggs? I do remember when you used to have eggs. They were like, fucking
And then
the
there
piano
would
was
be-
like, here comes the bad bit. Here comes the reason for this scene, which is going to disappoint you.
And then,
And then
here was a 15-minute montage of her cooking and him eating eggs.
Arnie, bless it. Okay, here's another problem I have with the movie. Leaving aside the fact. Oh, by the way, what I wanted to say before I didn't go to finish was, it's not only that Arnie versus Zombies would be a kick-ass movie. I don't know how much money this movie is going to make.
4
But my guess is 4 bits. If you made an Arnie versus Zombie movie, it would make money. It would
course
make
it would.
money.
Course
So
it
why
would.
the hell aren't they making? It only occurred to me halfway through in a particularly ridiculous shot of Arnie's grizzled face making a ridiculous expression, of which there were like too few.
Yeah.
It's like we haven't got him for that long, you know. We've only got him for like what, another 5-10 years where he's like grizzled Arnie.
No,
Looking
I mean
fucking
another
cool
10
and
years.
pulling
eh?
it off.
I mean,
Okay.
Clint Eastwood's still going.
Yeah, true, but he's getting more and more like a ridiculous, like, racist skeleton. Like, that's basically what it's become. But we haven't got Arnie for that long, so for God's sake, let's stick him in some movies.
When
know?
you said that, I had this image of this like sitcom, like an update of the Addams Family or something. And they have like the racist skeleton uncle. He's always saying like near the knuckle stuff, and they're always like, "Oh, uncle,
No, Uncle,
The
crazy racist skeleton. Crazy racist skeleton.
Oh, that's hilarious.
So they should use him, and they didn't. And it was just, I don't know. It made me upset that
No,
they
it-
wasted him.
it upset me
Wasting
because-
because they couldn't even be bothered to rewrite the script for him, and he's saying these like down home southern things like, "You and I, we go a ways back," which
Right.
the line written on the screen, but it's Arnie.
Yeah, you and I, we go ways
We
back.
got a ways back. They did at least rewrite it for the poor sod. Or like, do you remember when you were young and your mother gave it to me when we were kids? When did you come over from Austria, right? What point did that happen?
Also,
fine.
his name was Wade.
Oh, no. I couldn't even be bothered.
You could have called him Klaus or something, but there's no way that a German family called their son Wade, because in Germany it would be Wade.
Vade.
Hello, Wade.
Hello, Vade. Vader, maybe. Right?
I am Vader, and I'm here to kill you zombies.
God, I would have watched that film.
Uh-huh.
German Wade kills zombies. Brilliant.
Yeah.
But that's what happened. They had a shitty script. And then Arnie went, I blame Arnie, because Arnie clearly went, oh yeah, I could be in serious film. I have a few days. And then they got Breslin, presumably on the back of having him, and they shot it real quick. And that's fine, but they should have rewritten it.
Well, what they did was they went to a nearby barn party, which was winding down, where there was a particularly drunk dwarf, and they gave him a 16mm camera and went, have at it, bingo.
Follow him. And so that's that.
And he went,
so we got,
thank you very much, sir. And he
we
went
got
off.
Bingo the drunken dwarf.
Yeah.
And
Filming
Clint
Grizzled
the
Arnie.
racist skeleton. All getting together for a barn party.
Again, a movie I would watch. Can I have one of your fries? Thanks, man.
And as for the ending, the best thing about the ending, and I wish I'd recorded this guy. There's a guy at the back of the theatre, right?
Who really annoyed us when he first came in
Because he was talking, and then we go, you know what? Actually, I don't mind.
I don't care that he's
Don't care.
talking.
It's so boring. Right at the end of the movie, it ends like kind of suddenly, and a bit, and definitely weirdly, and not in a satisfying way at all. Even though everyone involved with it was really clever. One of those endings.
It was a good shot, to be fair.
It was a good, yes, it was a very good shot, but it ended what the shot meant and how the film ended. The screen goes to black, and it comes up directed by. And this guy at the back goes, what the fuck? No, really. And he goes, he didn't kill nobody, nobody bit nobody. I was really upset, and rightly so.
Right.
I expressed my feelings about the film.
Well, it's my
What the
problem is
fuck?
that look, we do live in a world. We live in a post, like Zack Snyder Dawn of the Dead world, and we live in a post Walking Dead world where all spectrums of zombies are welcomed. And there's been a whole bunch like Fido, the one with Billy Connolly, where it's kind of set in this like fake 50s where all the zombies are like pets. And you've got Life After Beth, which was made recently with John C. Reilly and Audrey Plaza, where she's like someone's girlfriend who becomes a zombie and stuff, and like hilarity doesn't really ensue because it's another one of these indie twee things that makes me want to vomit up my colon. And
wait, vomit up?
Yeah. So that my colon comes up through my...
Oh, vomit up. I thought you meant like somehow bend your head down underneath you and then vomit up. So I was going, why would you want to do that?
Right.
Okay, I guess so.
You haven't seen the movie. So what I'm saying is, then there's like Living Dead Girl. There's been a whole lot of interesting takes.
Right.
Not necessarily successful, but at least interesting takes. Where instead of doing the end of the world post-apocalyptic thing, they've tried to do some other things with it, which, being a more of a Romero purist, I'm really pleased with, because that's
they weren't proper
the stuff.
But they weren't proper zombies, were they? Because he broke one's neck and that was the end.
Well, but we don't know that was the end, because he went, get in the car, we must go.
True,
so we don't know that the zombie didn't get up after
Yeah.
wander around with his broken neck. So, and that was a legitimate jump scare. Like, I really thought that was well done.
Yeah, true, yeah.
And I actually thought there might be some promise to the movie before it turned into...
I have to say, I had a very, very bad feeling as soon as that doctor went, I'm going to sign her out, blah, 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 because I thought, this is the entire premise of your movie, that you're going to spend this time at home with your daughter, but but I don't buy. There's so many other ways you could have done it. Like she could have become infected at home, and then you have to worry about what you're going to do, and the whole world's going to shit outside. You'd have to show any of that. There's so many other ways you could have handled that. But instead of a doctor going, well, hello, I'm Dr. McGuffin, and here's your daughter back, so that you can have a drama for the next hour and a half. And there's no other reason for doing it.
Right.
You know?
Well, the biggest problem
because of Vern. Vern says it's all right, and you know me and Vern, we go way back.
Yeah, but the thing is that...
No, who's Vern?
Is that everything... There are sequences throughout zombie films.
Right.
In which people have to kill their loved ones.
Yeah.
And they have to come to terms with the idea of, before the virus got them, they were the person that I knew.
Right.
And the moment they succumb to the virus, they are no longer the person that I knew. They've been taken over. Buffy deals with it frequently with the idea that when you become a vampire, for example, who is another aspect of a living dead, that you lose your soul to the demon. So because your soul is gone, it's not you anymore, it's the demon inside, right? Same can be said for the zombie virus in any of the movies. I mean, Shaun of the Dead is a prime example of him having to kill his mum at the end, and even having to kill Philip the stepdad. Like, he says, there's the line in it where he says, it was my dad, but it's not him anymore. You know, nothing that was Philip is left in that car, you know, and then he comically turns off the radio, right? So, like, which is a really good joke. But there are plenty of moments in zombie films where someone has to come to terms with killing the thing, right?
Right.
So, if you've sat through as many zombie films as we have,
Right.
and that dilemma has been presented to you both very well in something like Shaun of the Dead, where I think that although the last act of that movie is a little uneven, you do genuinely feel the upset of him having to kill his mum. Like, that is genuinely something that is upsetting.
Right.
Or in the case of Dawn of the Dead with, I forget the character's name now, but he gets bitten, doesn't he? Well, Roger is the character's name. He gets bitten while they're doing the truck moving bit, and he gets a bit overzealous and thinks that everything's going to go great, and then he gets bitten, and then you have that sequence where they're like wheeling him around in a wheelbarrow and blah 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 blah, and then eventually, like, you see him come up under the bed sheets, and he's finally gone through the transformation, and Ken Free has to shoot him, right? So we feel that. So we've seen that, and can't, like, it's not something that hasn't been played out before. Right? These aren't emotions we haven't seen done in literally 10 to 15 minute scenes.
Yeah.
And The Walking Dead is, again, rife with these examples. So to see that stretched out over 90 minutes with a sort of slightly ambiguous, passable cancer metaphor, it doesn't make it any more interesting or any more painful.
That's the problem. You're right. Everything they've tried, it's not that the whole idea of turning into a zombie is a metaphor for something else isn't a good idea. It's not that the cancer thing doesn't work. It's just that it isn't very interesting. Like, nothing they're doing is interesting. Nothing that they talk. Even if they were proper characters, that would help. But how the hell are we supposed to care about them if they're not proper characters?
Right.
None of them are. I've got no idea. I didn't even realise that she was that the blonde one was the stepmom until you pointed it out.
Right. And which the problem is that there were bits where they were like, we'll have the bit where the stepmom decides, I can't do this anymore, and Arnie obscurely kind of hates her for it, and sort of maybe mentions earlier problems where Abigail Breslin's character may have been coming to terms with having a step, you know what I mean? But that's a soap opera idea we've seen 100 other times played out literally in maybe 2 or 3 scenes better than this. Like, all the little bits in this film were so obvious that you weren't watching it going, wow, this is really turning on its ear, all these conventions or ideas, or really delving deeper into these. Forget turning it on their ear, just delving deeper into these things.
I'll tell you what it's like. It's like, when you're watching the action movie, right? And there's a scene in the action movie where the lead character has to go back home and he has to sit in his childhood bedroom and look up at the pictures of his dad when his dad was a cop and remember what it really means to be a proper cop before he goes out there and kicks ass.
Right.
And as soon as that scene begins, all right, this is the scene where he goes back home and he reconnects with his mum and talks about his dad and gets his courage back up and goes back out there. And you watch that scene because you know that
afterwards there'll be a payoff.
Right. But you care about the character, you realise that he has to go through this, there needs to be like a quieter moment, and they've got Kathy Bates to be the mum, there's just like things to keep it interesting, right?
Right.
And then he goes back out there and kicks ass, and you're away. But imagine an entire film of just those scenes, where every time it starts, you know exactly what it's trying to do, exactly what it wants to say, but you don't believe any of it.
Right, you don't care.
Any of it. No, it was...
Well, like I said, Abigail Breslin, I'm almost pretty sure, and I forget what it's called. I think it might be called, like, My Sister's Keeper, or something.
Oh, yeah, that rings a bell.
And Cameron Diaz plays the sister, and, like, Cameron Diaz, like, shaves her head in solidarity and blah, 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 and she's going through chemo. So. And they have, like, lots of, like, they go on a Ferris wheel or so. I'm sure there's a scene.
I'm sure you can imagine the film start to finish without ever having seen it.
I've never seen it. I've only seen the trailer. But my point being, imagine that film, because this was the other problem with It Follows as well, is that it's all very well to have a metaphor, but you have to say, imagine this film isn't a metaphor, so she's not a zombie, she's actually dying of cancer.
Right.
And imagine the movie is, right, Arnie takes her back to a farmhouse, and she slowly dies of cancer. And that's it.
Right.
And occasionally people turn up and go, we're really sorry she's dying of cancer.
Yeah.
And then they go away again.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
Right.
Right? So just because you go, but it's not cancer, she's a zombie, but then you slavishly stick to it's cancer method, have you just...
I've just squirted mustard sauce.
All over
my crotch.
Nice, because that's not going to be a sticky, viscous white substance.
And they're quite like bright green trousers as well.
Oh man, I'm sorry.
That's right, I will be far and away the least weird looking person in New York. That's the one good thing about living in New York, right, is that thing where I used to happen, I'd be like, oh no, I'm going to look really weird, everyone's going to be looking at me. Never get that in New York,
right?
Because I'm wearing trousers, right. So that's one up. Everyone in the subway will be grateful for that.
You're not carrying your entire contents of your life in a couple of shopping bags.
You're the most damning indictment in this movie. A bag lady walked out halfway through the movie and crossing the went, she literally has nowhere else to go.
For some reason, whenever we watch movies in Times Square, bag people come in. This was no exception. In fact, 2 bag people came in.
Yeah.
Almost like they were on shifts. They were like, you go out and scream
Your turn. Oh, no.
You go scream about socialism on a street corner. I'm going to go back inside the cinema. She probably went out and goes, I wouldn't bother going in there. It's a piece of shit. But yeah, even the bag lady walked out. So what I'm saying is, right, remove whatever, and it was like It Follows, remove whatever like clever horror device they think they are employing and go, okay, well this movie's actually just about someone dying of an illness. Is it an interesting movie about someone dying of an illness? No.
But that's the problem, right? You've got to make one thing or the other. Romero made exciting zombie films, and the metaphor was there if you wanted to see it. I don't think he was like completely sure that it was about Vietnam. I think he felt that Vietnam signified like the breakdown of some idea of like the unity of a nation. Do you know what I mean? Like an idea of a single national identity. Some idea in him anyway.
Yeah, the most he's ever said on the subject was, we came out of the 60s and it didn't work. That's the most he's ever said.
Which is and that's legitimate to create a metaphor that doesn't have an exact.
And they didn't even intend the racism angle. That was just because the best actor for the job happened to be an African American actor. So they didn't even intend that like lynching scene at the end of it. That was always in the script, whoever it was. It was just meant to be like, oh, he dies anyway, despite heroically making it through the night.
Right, but that's the point. You take the metaphor away. If you'd gone to see Night of the Living Dead and you had no idea about the Vietnam or 60s Roman metaphor, it makes no difference to your enjoyment of the film.
No, of course not.
And similarly, if you were going to watch a film about...
Simile. Or metaphor. See what you did there? Anyway, carry on, yeah.
If you were going to watch a film where it was about like the destruction of, the American valleys because of Vietnam, and there have been plenty of those films too,
right,
they can be quite good, providing that's what it's about.
Right.
But you can't make both things and think that's enough. Just because you're making
an interesting film.
Oh, there's a good metaphor here, the end. You're right, there has to be something going on. You have to be able to enjoy it, whether you get the metaphor or not.
That's
because
the problem
there's only a limit.
And this movie.
Yes. There's only so long you can sit there going, Jesus, I'm clever, I'm getting the metaphor again. Only an arse would sit there for 90 minutes, and every time they go, oh, it's cancer, yeah, and feel clever. Like, fuck.
Well, whatever it is. I mean, I'm only going with that because that's what, abundantly seemed to fit.
No, I think you're right. The reason that falls down is...
No, because the ultimate thing is...
No, I'm sorry, not your idea.
When a sick person is dying, one of the hardest things everyone has is, and the one thing that the sick person always wants them to do is let them go. Like, please let me go. Like, please pull the plug. Because it's not ever getting any better. And you sitting around here hanging on to every last little touch of a pinky or every last little kiss on the forehead is not helping anybody, you know what I mean? So the fact that and maybe the reason why they had Arnie was he is so known as this pillar of strength that the fact that really ultimately he can't let her go and he can't pull that trigger and she has to do it herself is the ultimate thing, right?
I mean, I guess, but then he does pick up the bullet and walk outside. So it's more like she's saving him from having to do it, which I like your explanation that he couldn't do it.
Do you know what I was racking my brains all the way through? Is normally when you hire someone like him or like Stallone doing Copland, right?
Right.
There's a reason why you hire Stallone to do Copland, and it's because his character was meant to be young and strong and virile and blah 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 blah.
Right.
And because of this incident where he saves the woman, he like gives up on life, loses his hearing, is unable to fulfill his dreams, blah 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 blah. Like there's a whole reason to it, and and when that movie came along, Stallone had shown lots of promise as a much younger guy during the 80s, and by that point was not getting the scripts and the roles and blah 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 blah. There was a nice tie-in. It's like Michael Keaton with Birdman or whatever it is. So there's a nice tie-in, and it doesn't take you out of the movie, but it doesn't like fully enhance the movie, but it does something there. There's something there, you know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
Because like a lot of people in Hollywood, Stallone, and like old Hollywood especially, he's not an actor so much as he is a Hollywood superstar, like a what do they call him? Just like a star. He's like a presence, right? Now, he's a very good presence, and in Copland I think he does a wonderful job acting. It's not to say he doesn't act. I'm just saying, like, John Wayne was not an actor. He was a superstar. Like, he's a Hollywood superstar. And there's like that difference, isn't there, between the actor, the Sam Rockwell or someone who's an actor, or Michael Keaton who's an actor.
Right.
They might be stars as well.
No, I take your point. It's like,
but like
you have some people who and you can use that. Like in Copland, you can use that presence, especially if the presence is based on him being strong and virile and youthful. Right. You can play with that, and you still get that like charisma on screen, while at the same time it being a bit broken. Like those, like I can't remember who said it, but they were saying the thing about Stallone in that movie is that he walks through it like a wounded bull.
Right.
That's such a good description of how he plays that whole movie. But nobody had that sentence for Schwarzenegger. No one said to Arnie, you're this. This is what we need from you.
He wasn't even a veteran or anything. Like, all he was a guy who ran a farm and had a pickup truck. Like,
that was it.
It could have been played by anybody. Like if Bill Paxton had played the role, or someone like that, or like Dennis
That I would have
Quaid.
believed, and then I never would have seen it, and I'd be much better off.
Right, or Dennis Quaid or something. Like, they're the people you really want in this movie. Having Arnie in the movie did nothing
You're
for
right.
the
They
movie.
did nothing for the movie, and they didn't. And
And it's such a shame. Like,
anyone with half a brain
I've always
could
been
have tweaked
saying-
that movie to make it much better because Arnie was in it, and they couldn't be bothered.
I've always been saying that what's interesting about Arnie's second half of his career lately is that he seems to be having tremendous fun and like doing a bunch of stuff that he wouldn't normally do. But actually, I'm a bit wrong in that, because when you look back to the people he used to work with, outside of stuff like Commando or whatever, or even Predator to some extent, although Predator is not, like, it wasn't like Stallone was fighting aliens or Van Damme was fighting aliens or whatever. Like,
It's a good point.
Arnie was the only one who
It's
did,
still one
like,
of the best science fiction action films
Right.
of the 80s.
Arnie was still doing things back then. He was always doing stuff that was with monsters or sci-fi or future or something. Like, his Commando is actually weird for Arnie, because it's like one of the few sort of contemporary films he makes during that period, or like Raw Deal
Red Heat.
or Red Heat. But if you think about it, the Terminators, the Total Recall, what's the one I was just talking about? Predator. He's working with interesting directors.
Right.
Conan is another one, like John Milius. He's working with like interesting directors. It's a costume thing as opposed to a modern day, right? He was always a guy who, whether like savvily or not, whether he knew what he was doing or not, sort of picked or was given interesting things to do. Yeah, always around the fact that he's like a big lumbering tree of a man, right? So Conan is like, we will hear the lamentations of the women, you know, like it's like ridiculous and ludicrous, right? And you know, Cameron obviously casts him as a, you know, murdering cyborg from the future, which is perfect. But like no one's casting him as Hamlet. But all I'm saying is, yeah, to be or not to be, that
The answer is B. Now you will die.
That'd be amazing.
Like Patsy Claudis's chance.
But even if you look at like Eraser, that's like a semi-futuristic idea. The Sixth Day has got like twin Arnies in it. You've got End of Days. He fights the devil. Like,
although I think to be fair, that's more of a function of the fact that he's such an unusual guy,
Right.
With a crazy voice and a crazy face and everything about him is weird,
right. But if you put him in,
he ends up in weird movies because he can shape those movies to fit around him. Right? It's like something Van Damme should have done a lot more of. All
Like
Van
Time
Damme's
Cop
best
or
films,
whatever.
like Time Cop. That's vital as opposed to, all right, what's your reason for the accent this film?
Yeah.
You know? And I don't mind that stuff. I don't even mind that Arnie's a fucking farmer. And there's an easy way to explain that away. You don't even have to explain it away. But don't call him Wade and don't have him speaking like a good old boy. Because then it just reminds you that this is Arnie. And this doesn't make none of this is making any sense. Also on board.
right. Yeah. So I mean, the film is unfortunately a complete washout. There's nothing.
There was some interesting.
Oh.
There was a couple of interesting shots. I liked when she walked down the stairs and her feet were all like zombified, and the way they were hitting the.
Yeah, but that's straight out of the Evil Dead remake. It's straight out of the Evil Dead.
Oh, I don't know. I haven't seen the Evil Dead remake.
Neither have I, but I've seen the trailer and it looks exactly.
No, I just mean like the way her feet hit the stairs.
Right.
Were kind of like it was otherworldly and a creepy and it was an effective shot. And wasn't there like another shot that was pretty good?
Yeah. There were two shots where the cameraman went, oh yeah, there's a tripod in my bag.
No, the dwarf was on break.
Right, the dwarf was on break. They stuck it on a tripod, and it looked like one of those old photographs you see of like Depression-era South, with like an old fence,
Right.
and a guy in a plaid shirt and some old bins or whatever, and he's leaning up against the thing and he's smoking his cigar. There was a sequence in this where Arnie did that, and it was the one shot that was filmed on a tripod, and it looked really good. Then they gave the camera back to the drunken dwarf, and the whole film went back to shit again.
Yeah.
There was one sequence where, because Breslin has this boyfriend who's also dying of zombie virus, which is simply only in there so they can have a makeout scene, which is like and the police raid his house,
Yeah.
right, and take him away, because it's meant to be like, they're not going to do that to Maggie, but this is what could be happening.
Right.
And he's the kid who's told about the fact that at the quarantine place, they just throw them all in together. The ones who have been zombies longer eat the ones that have just got in, and it's not a pleasant place to be, and it's just... And, you know, that conjures up images of the beginning of Dawn of the Dead, where in the bottom of the tenements, they're all just sat there wrapped up in blankets, and they've just been dumping the bodies down there. Right? So... the police burst in, raid the house, grab the thing. The guy with the gun doesn't do anything. Nobody shouts or does anything. Everyone just gets out of the way and lets them do it. And it's like one of the least remarkable sequences in the movie.
Yeah, it was so odd, because she goes all the way over there and then says, through the door, open the door, you're stronger than you know, you've always been strong. Yeah, but what his choices are, open the door and be shot in the face, or have the door kicked down and be dragged away to quarantine. But those are your where does strength come into it? You know what I mean?
Well, because...
like, have a human moment with him or something. You know what I mean? Like, calm him down.
Because that's what it was. That's where the sickness thing comes in. It's like when she went to attack him after she'd been lying on the ground by the phone.
Right.
And he said, stay with me, stay with me.
Right.
That's what you say to a sick person who's dying.
Right. Yeah, okay. Right, I see that. Yeah.
And the kid getting dragged away by the police is her facing the alternative, her facing her mortality.
That was quite an effective story, I thought. Because I believe that, the idea that people at different stages of the disease, i.e. ones that are still human but are definitely, like, you know, on the turn or whatever,
right,
get thrown into a big warehouse full of, like, people who have already turned, and they don't care what stages they're at. They all get thrown together, and so they're going to get, you know, literally eaten alive.
Right.
You know, and that would be terrifying.
Interesting movie that's happening
somewhere else. Right. But you're right. But that was so. There were bits.
That's where all the tripods are. They're busy making that. They're busy making that movie.
And Arnie's twin from The Sixth Day. Right. We got the wrong twin for this movie. Somewhere Arnie's breaking into the facility, you know, to get his daughter back. That would be brilliant.
That's the movie.
That's the movie. Fuck, we just thought about the movie.
That's the movie.
She gets put into the warehouse. They're all different stages. She gets warned. You know, there's like people in there, like half turned. One of whom is Peter Weller. Who like warns her.
Stop making this movie
in his like jive talking way about how, like the rules of the warehouse, you know. And they try and keep some of them behind, but you know they're all turning and all the rest of it. And then Arnie has to break into the high security facility to bust his daughter out. And after he busts her out, which is on about the hour mark,
right?
Then they go on the run,
right? And
they bond a little bit, and then they have to have a stakeout, probably in some amazing location. The one out of For Your Eyes Only, that'll be fine.
That'll be
right?
Fine.
And they have to have a stakeout where Arnie's keeping these guys out because he wants to keep his daughter, but he's all of a sudden realising, well, why am I doing this? Because like she's behind him, she's getting sicker and she's getting sicker, and we all know she's going to turn, and then right at the end of the movie, he has to put a bullet in her brain. There's your movie. Costs exactly the same amount of money, and you've got Peter Weller, and it's much better. Also, fire whoever did the music and hire Tom Waits.
Yeah.
What you say is, Tom, this is going to be the soundtrack, right? It's you and this fork.
Yeah.
Right? That's all you've got.
Yeah.
And whatever music you can make with this fork and your voice.
And he just bangs the fork and he just breaking it, ding. That's amazing. I'm already. See, that's the better movie.
Yeah.
You just see. Why are you not in charge of Hollywood? Probably because we're sat here in a diner 10 o'clock at night talking about a movie that 5 people saw, 3 of which walked out.
And one of which at the end said, what the fuck?
I have sat through.
I did really enjoy that.
I have sat through.
That's 3 in a row.
Batman and Robin, right? With Arnie.
I couldn't get through that.
Spice World, right?
Get through that.
Scott Pilgrim, Man of Steel, a bunch of movies that were awful. I've never seen anyone walk out. Hi. We interrupt this podcast to say, hi, I'm interrupting this podcast because I'm looking for your help. Next year, we want to send the diner out on tour and start to meet a lot of the people who have been previous guests or vocal supporters of the diner for the last few years, and hopefully do shows with them in their own local diners around all of North America. Very exciting stuff. Also, we want to continue being able to release a free podcast every week from now on. Obviously, this is all very pricey with website costs, movie costs, eating costs, and traveling costs. It can all add up. So we're asking everyone who listens and loves the After Movie Diner to rush to patreon.com/After Movie Diner. That's www.patreon, which is patreon.com/After Movie Diner, and become a sponsor or a patron of the After Movie Diner for as low as just $1 a show or 70p if you're in the UK. Either that, or for a one-time donation, click the donate button on aftermoviediner.com. If you're strapped for cash, and we certainly appreciate that predicament, please don't forget to subscribe, rate, review, and share the After Movie Diner as frequently and across as many social media networks as possible. Every little helps, I can assure you. Want to be part of the show? Then just write to us at aftermoviediner@gmail.com or call us on 347-669-0053. Thanks for listening, and now back to the show.
If you're going to make this film, right?
Don't make this film.
Then you have to surprise people. As in, if you said to someone, "Oh, it's an Arnie Zombie film," they'll go, "Shit, man, that sounds great. You know, Arnie's going to kill lots of zombies," which is what I was hoping for. And then if you're not going to do that, if you're going to make like a serious film, then you have to surprise them and give them something really good, right? But you can't make the film that would be like their worst nightmare. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like dull, nothing happens. Like no realizations or thoughts or like anything about it to recommend it at all, except that people will walk out and go, "That was really dull, it didn't say anything, it was fucking boring, nothing happened, I fucking hated it," and they wouldn't be wrong. Do you know what I mean? It's not like the people that went to see Cop Man, and some of them went, "When the fuck are they going to start shooting?" or whatever. Because a lot of people, even though they didn't get the action film they thought they were going to get, really, really enjoyed it because it drew them in and it was a really compelling movie.
And you have Ray Liotta hopped up on coke for
right, and who the fuck, wouldn't want to see that more than once.
But and Robert De Niro going, "You blew it!" Love that so much.
That was, that surprised people by being really good. But you can't pull that bait and switch on people and then make something not only boring but like really middle of the road too. It wasn't even like boring like Sofia Coppola. All right, her films are boring, no question. But I feel like at least she's trying to like reach for something, some mood, some feeling, something that she can't quite capture and doesn't have the writing skills to do it. Fine, at least she's reaching for something. But this is like it's just middle of the road. It's just really dull people making a really dull movie.
You know that bit where
Which somehow conned Arnie to being in it because he doesn't fucking know any better. He's all turned around after The Last Stand. Ever since The Last Stand, he's all turned around. He doesn't know what to do. He thought he was going to get his big action comeback and he'd get to make loads of fun films, and that didn't do very well. He did everything right. It was a good, fun movie. He got a promising young action director from overseas. It should have worked. It's not his fault that it came out right after whatever that horrible fucking gun thing was. And it came out right afterwards, and all anybody talked about was all the gun violence, all the gun violence. It's a fucking Arnie action film. Of course there's going to be gun violence.
And it's a good one as well.
Yeah, it's not as if it's like, morally questionable garbage like Sean Penn did, right? This was like, look, they're drug dealers. Let's pretend it's the 80s again, when as long as they sell drugs, it's okay to blow their heads off. Right?
Well, it wasn't just that. It was a western. It was people ride into my town and I don't let them get across the border. It was a John Wayne story from 19...
By no means like the world's greatest movie, but as far as Arnie action films go, it was good. I enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah. I mean, I actually like that. I think The Last Stand and Escape Plan were the two best things he's done.
I love Escape Plan.
The Escape Plan is so good. And nobody, I'm
okay with The Last Stand and I even
the
like
Escape Plan knew what to do, right?
Yeah.
The Escape Plan, there's mostly awful bits. There's sort of quite a few awful bits in it. But it knows that you keep Arnie and Stallone on screen, right? You give them a shit ton of either like banter between them, or if they're by themselves, like incredible stuff to do, like Arnie babbling German and going mental.
God, that was cool. That was so cool.
Right? And then, to pay it all off at the end, you have him wrench a fucking machine gun off a helicopter and just blow everything up.
Yeah.
If you do that, I leave the cinema going, that was the greatest movie I've ever seen. Because you had him wrench a machine gun. And if in the last 5 minutes of this movie he'd wrenched a machine gun off one of the cops and just, like I said, if he killed his daughter, had driven him so bonkers that he went through this hick town and tore the limbs off people, and that was the last 5 minutes, was him hulking out, going, "Ah!" and doing like, this is it. An Arnie movie is only as good as the bit where he leaps and screams at the same time, and in this movie he neither leapt nor screamed. And I want no part of that, Arnie.
No, that's fine.
I want you to go back to the bit where you go, "Ah!" and then like die.
Here's the difference between this and The Escape Plan. The Escape Plan was, first of all, a good prison break movie. That's all it was.
Yeah, I mean, it was a bit
It had some nice touches.
hokey, but it
sure,
was
fine.
fine.
You know why it was good? Because there were enough touches in it. Was it
Sam Neill.
Just throw Sam Neill into any film and make it better. Did Stallone direct it?
No.
Okay, so whoever it was, anyway, probably Stallone, because I'm guessing he still had the power, or Arnie. But they said, "Hey, wouldn't it be fun if I went nuts in the prison cell and like started jabbing it down?"
Everything was great. That was lovely. Thank you.
Yeah, no, I'm done. Thanks, man. That would be great.
Right.
Or wrenching the machine gun off the helicopter, like nice little like, what if we did this touches? Wouldn't that be fun?
Right.
And so you get like a well written, well plotted, B movie prison escape film with two great actors.
Right.
Okay, let's not go too far here. Two great screen presences of our generation.
But doing a very good job.
Doing a great job, and then someone going, "This is fun. Let's like sprinkle some like fun ideas throughout it, just to lift it up a little bit from its straight ahead B movie origins, right?" But this one had none of that. It, first of all, didn't have a script. It wasn't a good idea, so you've got two things going for it. And at no point did anybody, for a fact, I know. At no point did anybody go, "Hey, wouldn't it be cool?" Not even fun. Fair enough. It's not a fun movie. But like, wouldn't it be cool if we did this?
Right.
There were no like nice touches to it or little bits of imagination. Every scene was like, it seemed like every scene was the same length, had the same music,
right,
made the same fucking point,
right,
and then that was it. There was nothing interesting or like cool or fresh.
And the worst thing is that the one break we get from the farmhouse is left in the hands of teenagers, right? Like the one bit, right? Okay, in Day of the Dead, right? There's all this stuff going on, and it sort of becomes a bit interminable. I mean, in a good way, but it becomes a bit like oppressive and blah blah blah. And then there's the sequence where she goes over to the guys who live in the Winnebago, the Jamaican, the Irish guy, right? Yeah. And she goes out the back, and there's like this big beach scene that they put up there, and he does his, this 50-mile tombstone.
You could do that, couldn't you? You could just leave all this. Hell, I could do that even if all this wasn't going on.
Right. And you get your 5 minutes, and like Romero changes the soundtrack, and you get your 5 minutes where he talks about they got the records down here set of every natural disaster, and like they do the whole bit, right?
Yeah.
And you take your breath, you go, God, this is cool. I could listen to this guy expound about the idiocy of Western culture. Like, this is brilliant, right? The Irish guy comes out with some whiskey, blah, 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 and then we're back to the action, right? The one bit in this movie where that happens is, instead of it going to, James Woods pulls up as a cop or something happens involving James Woods, right? Which would have at least been like, oh, fuck me, James Woods. Yeah. Instead of that, it is 4 kids we immediately hate because they're kids go off to a campfire where this person who's like not a very good actor expounds on like the situation in not a very interesting way because he's like a 15-year-old boy.
Also, he doesn't say. What's weird is
he doesn't say anything of any note or interest.
That we don't already know.
Right, and so when I leant over to Jim at that point and I said yes because I want the explanation or the philosophical dissection of this situation given to me by a mop-head 15-year-old boy who doesn't know his arse from his elbow, because like, and then there's a sequence in the back of the bus where she gets to like make out with this guy, and it's like, well, that's where it felt like the Virgin Suicides. Like I'm sat around watching like 15-year-olds like make out, what is this? Like, what is this to do with anything?
Yeah, it was deeply confused. And it thought that it was. You're right. It's a lot like the follow. It follows.
It follows.
It's a lot like that because they thought that the metaphor was enough.
Right.
They thought that, well, what we'll do...
And It Follows was a better film than this. That's how bad this was. Yeah, it was. It Follows was more interesting than this. Even with all the sequences of kids lying around on patent duvets and lots of, like, hipster lampshades, it was still a more interesting
I don't know,
film.
because It Follows made me really, really angry. Like,
Yeah,
it made
I
me
know.
angry. It made me angry really quickly.
But-
it wasn't so bad for you because you didn't get angry until towards the end.
But if
I spent most of It Follows in a state of being really angry. And I spent most of this film being in a state of extreme boredom. Okay, all right, I take your point. I guess it is better to be angry than bored, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm just, existential.
What I'm saying is stuff happened. Right, they went to a beach. Something turned
none of it
out.
made me
they had a
sound
fight. No,
shit,
but
you're right. Stuff happened. Yeah,
nothing happened. But what I mean
sorry,
is,
hang
they
on,
were in
sorry.
a car. Then they were by a beach. Then there was a monster. Then they went here. Then they were in a swimming pool. Then this happened. Like stuff happened. They
That's
didn't just
true.
sit around
That's
a
true.
farmhouse smelling each other's guts.
But the similarity is they thought that the metaphor was enough, and in this one they thought, and maybe you're right, maybe this is why it's a worse movie. But they thought, well, what we'll do, we've got this metaphor where, becoming a zombie is like cancer. And then what we'll do, because it's it's a zombie film, so what we'll do is we'll drag it down. Like, we'll make it more real, we'll make it more human, and we'll fill it full of these human moments. And every single scene, the reason why it's so boring is it was an attempt to, create a human, to create a human moment. But it's a fucking zombie movie, and you create those human moments out of character is how you do it, and it doesn't matter. They don't need to be, it's so human for the father and daughter to bond over the terrible food. No, create the characters first, and then it doesn't matter if they're halfway through a complicated plan, but they have to set off 3 bombs simultaneously in order to save the MacGuffin from becoming the anti-MacGuffin or whatever.
Right.
You can have human moments in that. It doesn't matter what they're doing.
Right.
What matters is the characters interacting with each other.
they weren't any characters.
Every single moment was an attempt to create some realistic human moment in the midst of a fucking zombie film. And if you want to do that, that's fine, dude. Go away and make that film. But you don't have the zombie fig leaf of, well, it's automatically interesting what I'm doing because it's a zombie film, but actually it's about something else. So everything they felt like they didn't have to work hard to create any real moments because the whole zombie, cancer metaphor idea they thought was enough. And it fucking
the worst
wasn't.
thing
So they
is that
didn't
they
bother to try
also
it.
kept trying to throw in what they thought was tension, like the neighborhood woman showing up with a gun and then being
So not
demanding
tense.
to see the bodies of her dead.
Do you know you actually fell asleep?
Sorry,
You actually fell asleep.
I didn't
for 5
actually
minutes.
fall asleep.
No, you actually fell asleep.
I didn't know. I
No.
was faking it.
No, you weren't. I know you think you were faking it, but you weren't. And I'll tell you why I know you weren't. Because this was... for the purposes of the podcast listeners, I am putting my head over to one side,
Yeah.
like that,
Yeah.
putting my mouth open,
Yeah, I did that on
and
purpose.
snoring. And snoring gently. You fell asleep. Because I looked at you, thinking you were going to go, snoring, eh? But no, you were asleep for about 5 minutes. He's also went, after you were done, he pulled your head up like that, and then put your head back again like that. So you were actually asleep about 3 quarters. I was a bit jealous. Genuinely, I was jealous because I thought I'm a bit tired. I could probably use going to sleep right now.
Yeah.
So you did fall asleep, and I haven't seen you do that in too many movies.
We almost walked out.
Yes, we were very close.
And I didn't walk out because I was enraged.
No.
I just walked out because I was like, I don't need to see
No,
this.
you're right. That was the overriding thought. That's why I would have walked out because I thought every single moment of this
I don't need to see it.
is
I'm assuming 45 minutes in that the last 10 minutes of this movie is not Arnie holding 2 enormous machine guns mowing down
no.
flagons of
And it's
zombies.
fine. It's not like we're saying, oh, we'll only watch an Arnie film if he kicks ass. Because we'll watch Arnie do other things. That's fine. But as long as they're interesting, I wouldn't
Right.
go to see Arnie boils an egg for an hour. Do you know what I mean? I'm
And
not
goes,
gonna
look at me with the egg.
look at me. It is a human moment, right? I wouldn't.
I
wouldn't
ate
see
chicken and the chicken didn't taste
But
good.
we are entitled to be bummed that they had a chance to make a zombie film with Arnie, which was presumably how it was pitched. And they thought it would be terribly clever to make this a serious zombie. I'm all for I don't mind the idea of silly things being taken seriously because sometimes that can work really, really well. Some of the films that me and Teresa really, really enjoy are very silly films.
Well, if you look at
Everybody's taking it dead seriously.
If you look at the vampire series of films. There are plenty of like existential vampire films where they sit around and go, oh, the meaningless of existing forever and blah 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 blah. And so because you what you do is you look at something that you look at the cliches of vampirism and all the different things, and on one hand being very fragile, and on the other hand living forever, and what that can mean. And there is a pretentious, existential, wafty film to be made about that. And all that we've done is we've come so far down the road of zombie films where they've literally wrung out the flannel of zombie films to the point where there is no more fake blood in the flannel left whatsoever. And this film was someone standing in front of us for 90 minutes wringing out a dry flannel. That's literally what this movie was. It was like it was like let's
it was a dry flannel that produced a single tear that fell onto a photograph of Arnie. Oh, he worked so hard to make that tear.
There was then
there's one bit in the movie where he cries one tear, and you can tell he's working so hard to make it come out.
Yeah.
And in the end, it's a bit like
just looks like
it's just pathetic.
Shit.
Yeah.
Maybe he had a bit of hay fever.
Shitted out a tear.
Just shitted out.
And you can hear him go. They cut out. They had to overdub the sound of him go. Cry. For one lousy tear.
It was
really,
it was so
really
boring. It was so boring.
Oh, and the fucking music,
and
the fucking grey skies.
I don't know how.
The fucking Arnie going.
There was one bit where he went out and burnt his field of wheat.
Oh God!
And I don't know why.
No, that was.
It was never
bad.
mentioned.
I think the worst bit of conversation, the whole thing, was when he goes. He shows her the garden with daisies, and he said, "You told me that it would be good if I planted. You said it would be a good idea if I planted the daisies in the garden, and then you went away, and I put daisies in the garden, and then when you came back, they had grown."
Yeah.
I put daisies in the garden. The end. You're not telling me anything I don't already know. Right. Also, I can see there are daisies in the garden.
Nature sows the seed, and then it waters the seed, and then the seed grows.
Yes, Neil.
Yes, Neil. No, but you don't understand.
That's what it was like.
Nature sows the seed.
You're looking at a picture of daisies in the garden. You said this would be a good idea for your mother's garden. The end.
You said it was a good
Assuming
idea.
you even need to do this.
I did it. It's good.
You told me I should do this, and it is done. And then you came back, and it was still done. Top bearding, no question.
Oh.
There was a bit when he was walking through the house, and Crossy pointed out that if this was a Tom Waits song, it would work. Dead bees out the window. The washing up ain't done. I was supposed to be appalled by, look, they haven't done the washing up. That was the horrible moments of, the washing up's not been done. Oh, the degradation.
It was, was
that zombie shit on the wall, by the way?
I don't know.
Was that because he went in there? He was like, oh, it smells really bad. Because I remember thinking, he walks into the room and it smells really bad. I remember thinking, but the zombies are gone. So what is it that smells really bad? I remember loads of brown handprints on the wall. So I thought, well, presumably if they weren't locked out, they did have to shit everywhere.
No,
so,
that might be the zombie blood because the zombie blood was black in this.
But if they're locked in a room, then they do have to take a shit somewhere.
Okay, maybe it was shit.
So I just thought they were zombie hand shit all over the wall. They got bored and just look,
I painted with my shit.
Yeah, finger painting with the shit. They finger painted with the shit.
I love it with the faces on the wall and everything. No, it was. We've already talked about it way more than it deserves, and the thing is because. I can't hate it enough.
It was too bland.
It
was so empty.
You remember those videos that Paul McKenna did where he tried to wean people off smoking or something or make people more successful, and it was just pictures of the ocean or pictures of rolling farmland that was slightly bleak, and then over the top of it, he just kind of went, "You don't want to smoke. You don't want to smoke. Smoking is bad for you," whatever it was over the top of it, and people watched it and hypnotised or some other horse shittery. It was like watching that for 90 minutes. You know what I mean?
It was very...
And at the end of it, you just want to go, "I don't want to live. I don't want to live."
Yeah, it was like those adverts, usually for like booze or something, some high-end booze, where like people are sitting around campfires and running around in slow motion under sky with like the sun behind them, and those kind of like pretentious.
Yeah.
It was like
and
that.
It's all filmed on grainy 16mm.
Yeah, it was like that, but and as empty and as pointless. As it was really bad. I don't think there's anybody who listens to the podcast who, like, knowing the people that like, the kind of things that we talk about, and we don't have to have the same taste as us, but I can't think of a single person that would like this. I really can't think of anybody.
Let me put it this way.
We seem to be in a pretty good... I mean, I know it was a small cross-section of New York society, but it seemed to be like a pretty good cross-section. There were young people there were old people there were bag people there, There were people who thought they were coming into a zombie film, there was us, there was like everybody was there, and nobody liked it.
And also, let me put it this way. Right? Sean Penn, in an action movie, the Bono of acting in an action movie, right? Retro hipsters run away from literally nothing.
Literally nothing.
Right?
From a bad metaphor.
Hang on a second. And an Arnie Zombie movie. Now, if I'm pitching these to you, right, which one is the one you really want to see?
The Arnie Zombie film.
Right? And which was the worst one out of the three of them?
Oh, fucking hell.
The Arnie Zombie film, because it was boring, because it was dull. Oh, no, I hate all of them as well. I will never rewatch any of them, but I'm saying that like, even The Gunman had moments where we were okay, there's explosions going on.
If you were to add up the bits in the movies that weren't...
And It Follows had, like, the big guy coming in through the door and a few, like, good
That's
effects.
True. That's true. I didn't mind the music for the first 5 minutes.
Right. Like, something was going on in It Follows. No, it wasn't successful, but something was going on.
Okay, fair enough, you're right. I think this was... Okay, it's not that it was the worst.
No, it is the worst.
But it was... No.
Out of the three of them.
All right.
Okay. And not only that, but I can make it even better. The Stranded with Christian Slater and the Shut the Doors, better than all three of these movies.
Well, this is the cinema we were in when we talked about Stranded.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
But this wasn't the diner. The diner we were in was the Market Diner.
What did we see? What was this one then? What was the red flag? It doesn't matter. The Lawrence Fishburne one.
Yeah, The Colony. Which was good.
That was all right. It's a good. It was a solid 3-starer.
But I'm saying, out of if I pitch these movies to you, Christian Slater on a space station.
This is tough, man.
Arnie zombie film. Hipsters run away from literally nothing, and the Bono of acting holds a gun. You would go for the Arnie Zombie.
But they were all so... You mean if I had to watch one?
No, but if you had to watch one and that's all the information you had, you would go Arnie Zombie Movie, and you wouldn't realise this without seeing the other ones, but you'd be watching the worst one.
Yeah, you're probably right. I think you know what? I think maybe you're right. Even though I hate all of them, for different reasons. There were bits in Stranded that I quite enjoyed, because at least it had a bit of the old like Corman-esque B-movie ridiculousness about it that I quite enjoyed.
Had good special effects. There were some genuinely creepy moments.
The Gunman had like a couple of decent action sequences. It Follows, the music was some of the music was all right, and a couple of the horror sequences were genuinely like quite kind of creepy and were pretty effective under the circumstances.
And the initial idea, like the first 15 minutes of the film,
there wasn't anything good in this. I mean, I'm not wrong. Right? The feet walking down the stairs I like, but that's it. Actually, when I look, I didn't even. I like that you liked the Depression era shot of him doing that, but I thought in that shot he looked ridiculous and uncomfortable. I don't think he didn't look natural, and I didn't really care for that shot. I liked the shot of her feet coming down the stairs, but that was it. So and even after that was like 2 or 3 seconds worth. But that was it. So you're right. You're right. This was the worst one, and you're right. It was the worst because the other ones were objectionable horseshit, but they were trying something, whereas this felt like it wasn't even trying. It felt like nobody was trying. Even Arnie, I was expecting, even after we knew it was going to be shit, I was expecting him to do like a little bit more work, like work a little bit harder, but he didn't know what to do.
We didn't have anything to do.
No, he didn't. And
the thing is you can't expect... Dennis Quaid would have, like, I don't know, given himself a lip, or, like, greased his hair down, or, like, decided he was going to say y'all after everything. Like, he would have found some actory thing to have done. Or, like, spat tobacco or something. Like, he would have found some actory thing to do.
Yeah.
That would have elevated the fact that there was nothing in the script to work with.
Yeah.
Right?
But Arnie didn't know any better.
But but it's not that. It's just what could Arnie have done with that script, except for what he did?
Well, I think what he should have done was burnt
Fire
it or sent it back and go, no,
right,
no.
Can we have a scene in which I take out farmhouse with my head? You know?
Yeah.
How about I start truck by headbutting it and then like
how about I
killing
pick
people?
up daughter and kill other zombies with her
skull?
Yeah, with her skull. Yeah, I use her skull as like a boxing glove and punch other zombies to death with it.
Yeah.
Right?
No, dude. Your plot about having the CDC with all the zombies in the thing, the quarantine, and Arnie has to go get her out of there, and Peter Weller is like the leader.
Plus, by the way, the CDC's in the middle of a city.
Right.
With like the remnants of the outbreak still happening.
Right.
So Arnie has to like bargain his way in through like black marketeers and fight and chase and run away and run across rooftops and stuff just to get to that thing that's in the middle. Like he has to like pass a whole load of trials
like Land
to get
of the
to
Dead.
that. Right. Only without so much getting in a car, driving away, driving back, and driving away and driving back again. Going, George, make up your fucking mind. At least have a point B. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
The problem with Land of the Dead is okay, how are we going to get from point A to point A actually? Do you know what I mean? Like that's just a point A. That's all there is. That's the problem with that film. Otherwise, it could have been really good. But yeah, it could have been like that. But I don't know. It's a shame. It's a shame when you can think of a good film that one never made.
No, I'm just saying that of all the taglines, of all the selling points, this one has the best one, but it's the worst movie.
Yeah, agreed. Oh, I'm happy with that. I think you're probably right in terms of entertainment experience. I can imagine people listening to this podcast.
Because Stranded on a Space Station with Christian
I can
Slater,
imagine.
I got it. I went there and I was like, oh look, there's Christian Slater and he's stranded on a space station. That's exactly what it says on the tin, right?
Yeah, you're right.
The Bono of acting does a shoot 'em up movie. I got that. I got Bono of acting doing a shoot 'em up.
Yeah, you're right.
But It Follows was a bigger disappointment, but you know.
But I can see how
nothing was following.
I can imagine how people listening to the podcast, your fans out there, I can imagine some of them enjoying It Follows because there was stuff there to enjoy, even if it wasn't for us. I can imagine people enjoying The Gunman who only, if they went to it with like, well, I'm just here for the action, then they would be, like you said, they would be happy enough. And people going to see Stranded, knowing it's like a crappy B movie starring Christian Slater in space, they would get what they paid for. But I can't imagine anybody in the history of thinking watching this movie and coming away from
the only people who would watch this
anything.
movie and even remotely defend it would be people who thought that because the camera was wobbling all over the place and there was melancholy string and or piano music, that something a lot deeper was going on than was actually going on. And therefore they would claim interest in it simply
there would
because
be
of its
some
artistic machinations.
Yeah, like the film critic for the New Yorker, who's like an intolerable arse,
prick, right?
Would go, oh, of course, it was all a metaphor. I'm so tired of seeing zombie films with no metaphors. Personally, I love metaphors. This was the metaphor. It was so clever. I'm clever.
Yeah.
Did I mention that I'm clever? Hey, he would probably
the way that he kept showing the burnt wheat field just
at
reminded me.
At last, Arnie plays a proper role. Oh, get lost.
Yeah.
Get stuffed. Anyway, they might like it, but believe me, listeners, you will not.
Well, I'll tell, at no point does Arnie leap through the air in slow motion, making a face like someone is anally attacking him with a series of forks and wailing, which is what I want to see Arnie doing.
Yeah.
Something blows up and Arnie goes, "Wah!" and leaps out of the wall.
Right.
There was one bit where the cops came by at the very end of this movie, and Arnie was meant to be like facing his fate.
God, that was shit.
Right? Because he strung it out as far as he possibly can. Everyone in the town who apparently loves him, and they all goes ways back with him.
Yeah.
Right? Have given him literally as much as they possibly
also, town?
can.
What town? No town.
Right? They've literally given him everything he can. He has to face his fate. And there was a close-up of his face making...
There was
making
such a
cross
weird...
between,
Yeah.
like, slightly confused, slightly upset, slightly like, did I leave the gas on? And slightly like, I've just... It looked like someone showed Arnie a picture of some dental work, and he wasn't quite sure what was going on in the picture. It looked like... I don't know. It looked like he'd been shown a picture of like his buttocks during sex, like someone and he couldn't believe that's how they looked. You know what I mean? He had a face on that.
Yeah, you're right. It looked like his assistant was like calling to him in the middle of a shot. Hey Arnie, it's your unpopular, uncle calling or whatever. And like, what are you bothering me with my unpopular uncle for?
Right.
It was a really weird experience.
And when he turned round to the camera, I openly chuckled.
Yeah, it was
like at a point that was meant to be somber.
It was like I had the world's shittest policeman telling me, going, "Well, we're ready to take her." And then
there was literally a scene where a guy came in and went, "This is it. I'm not tolerating this anymore. I'm going to go and get her." Arnie threw him to the floor. The other policeman went, "Let him go. Let him go. Let him go." He let him go. And they drove off. And he went, "We'll be back again." And it was like, "You've already been back twice." And
we're going to be back, but you better get your stuff sorted out between now and then. Right, when's then? A day? Like, we'll be back tomorrow or whatever. Like, but no one talks like that. No one's like, "Oh, that's good enough." The girl who's got black eyes is breathing funny, covered in red veins, and like, just obviously a zombie. If you tell me you're fine, we'll walk away.
Then why did you show up?
Why did you... There's no point in picking holes in it. It's just a big hole. It's one big effing hole that Arnie fell into. And I'm sorry that he did, because he wasted valuable time he might otherwise have been making other films.
We have managed to talk about this film for as long as that film was on.
Wow.
We have talked about it for an hour and 22 minutes.
We should stop. That's too long for that film.
Yeah. So anyway, I feel like we've literally gone round in circles saying exactly the same thing over and over again. Much like this movie. But thank you ever so much, James.
Well, thank you for having me. I hope we didn't bore the crap out of you, but I enjoy seeing these movies because I know that after they're done we'll get to talk about them.
All right, everyone, and before we close the show out with a song, I just wanted to mention our good friend and good friend of the show, Robert Long, is producing his first movie in a long time, Madhouse Manor, and is raising money for it over at Indiegogo. So please check out www.indiegogo.com/projects/madhouse-manor-the-movie #/story, or just go to Indiegogo and search for Madhouse Manor. That's good friend of the show, Robert Long. He's looking for your support. He's looking for your money to help make a fantastic movie. He's going to star some of the Baltimore regulars, Leanna Chamish, Dick Dysel, and of course the always present and absolutely fantastic previous guest of the show and amazing person, George Stover, in it as well. So please check out Madhouse Manor. That's Robert Long's movie over on Indiegogo. And now, music! It took all the wind out of Martin the day they closed down that shop. Where was he going to buy videos now? How was he going to stop? Other places didn't have the selection. Other places didn't have the cool stuff. Other places they just felt colder. His whole life had been torn in half. There he sat on the curb. The rain in the gutter ruins his shoes, and nobody's paying attention. Nobody notices whenever they all lose, and it won't affect them in the morning They don't think of the ramifications. Martin knows when places like this close. It's bad for future generations. La la la, la 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 la. Martin rolls on towards nothing. Everything's moving so fast. He's sure that there's lots that we missed in the rush. He won't lose his grip on the past. His ex-girlfriend told him to live in the now, and most of his family worry. But Martin takes comfort in his tactile array. He's not the one in the hurry. And there he sits on his bed, his room in a clutter with piles of stuff. An old 78 on the turntable. His film collection will never be big enough. And one day they'll find him dead in here, when the smell drifts out to the hall. And they'll realize the things that they're missing. And Martin's ghost, yeah, he can stand tall. La 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 la, la 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 la. And one day they'll find him dead in here, when the smell drifts out to the hall. And they'll realize the things we're all missing. And Martin's ghost, he can stand tall for all of us. La 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la.